In the small, isolated town of Ashwood, a thick fog seemed to cling to the earth, blurring the lines between reality and something far darker. It was a town long forgotten by time, its inhabitants bound by stories of a once grand manor that now stood abandoned, draped in shadows and secrets. Evelyn Blake, a skeptical journalist with a penchant for debunking myths, arrived to investigate the eerie legends surrounding Ashwood Manor, unaware that she was about to unearth a history steeped in tragedy. As she approached the mansion, its silhouette loomed ominously against the slate-gray sky. Vines twisted around the crumbling stone, and shattered windows gaped like hollow eyes. A chill coursed through Evelyn as she crossed the threshold, her footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. Dust motes danced in the feeble light that filtered through the grime-streaked windows, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. Evelyn flicked on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness, revealing the remnants of opulence gone awry. Faded wallpaper hung like tattered skin, and the once majestic chandelier lay shattered on the floor, its crystals glinting like shattered dreams. She took a deep breath, suppressing the unease clawing at her throat, and began to document her findings. In the parlor, she found an old phonograph, its horn dusty but intact. Curious, she set her camera aside and placed a finger on the turntable. As she turned the handle, the device sputtered to life, releasing a haunting melody that echoed through the silence. The music warped and wavered, sending a shiver through her. It was beautiful yet unsettling, as if it carried the weight of sorrow. Suddenly, a sound pierced the airy soft, whispering voice, barely audible over the music. "Help us!" The words slithered into her consciousness, prickling her skin. She spun around, but the room was empty, save for the shadows that danced along the walls. Shaking her head, she chastised herself for allowing local folklore to seep into her mind. But as she moved deeper into the house, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Remember us, find us." Evelyn's heart raced as she ascended the staircase, the wood creaking underfoot. Each step felt like an intrusion into a realm she was never meant to enter. The air turned heavy, pressing down on her as she approached the master bedroom. The door, slightly ajar, seemed to beckon her inside. The room was cloaked in darkness, but she could make out a massive four-poster bed draped with moth-eaten curtains. On the bedside table lay a stack of old letters, their edges yellowed and brittle. As she leafed through them, a chill enveloped her. Words of despair spilled from the pages. The letters detailed the family's descent into madness, a father's erratic behavior, a mother's silent cries, and the children's laughter that faded into haunting echoes. "Where are you?" she murmured, feeling the weight of their sorrow press against her chest. As if in response, the temperature plummeted, and the whispers intensified, swirling around her like a storm. "Help us, find us." In a moment of clarity, Evelyn understood. The family hadn't just vanished. They had been consumed by the house, their spirits trapped in a cycle of grief and despair. She glanced around, heart pounding. The shadows seemed to coalesce, taking on forms that flickered at the edge of her vision. And then she saw her, a small girl with dark, hollow eyes, standing at the foot of the bed. Her expression was one of anguish, and as Evelyn met her gaze, the whispers coalesced into a singular plea. "Save us!" Evelyn felt a deep compulsion to reach out, to comfort the child, but instinct held her back. Instead, she grabbed her camera, snapping a photo. The flash illuminated the room, and for a brief moment, the girl vanished, replaced by a shifting mass of shadows that writhed and twisted. "Please, don't leave us," the voice echoed, chilling her to the bone. Panicked, she turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, trapping her inside. The room seemed to close in, the walls whispering secrets she was never meant to know. Desperation clawed at her throat as she pounded on the door, her breath coming in sharp gasps. The whispers turned into frantic screams, overlapping in a cacophony of anguish. Suddenly, the girl reappeared, now closer, her face twisted in silent agony. "Help us, remember." Evelyn felt her mind unraveling, the weight of the house pressing down like an invisible hand. She could almost hear their stories, the memories clawing to be freed. "I can't help you," she shouted, despair filling her voice. In that instant, the room grew still, the whispers fading into an unsettling silence. The girl's expression shifted to one of understanding, and she pointed toward a dusty mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. As Evelyn stepped closer, the reflection warped, revealing not her own face, but the distorted, hollow visages of the family, trapped, forever longing for release. Then, with a flash, the mirror shattered, sending shards scattering across the floor. In that moment, Evelyn was overwhelmed by a rush of memories, fragments of laughter, tears, and a darkness that threatened to consume her. The whispers surged back, deafening in their intensity, drowning out her thoughts. As the shadows closed in, she felt the cold fingers of the past grasping at her. With one final scream of defiance, she hurled herself against the door, desperate to escape. It swung open, and she stumbled out into the hallway, breathless and disoriented. But the house was not done with her yet. As she fled into the night, she glanced back at Ashwood Manor, its windows now glowing with a sickly light. The whispers had faded, but a deep, unsettling silence hung in the air. Evelyn realized with a dawning horror that she had not escaped. She had merely become another story to add to the legends of Ashwood. The manor loomed larger than ever in her mind, and as she drove away, she could swear she heard a faint voice call out from the depths of the darkness, "Remember us!" And though she tried to shake off the fear, the echo of their despair would haunt her forever, leaving her with an unsettling question. How could she tell their story when she was now one of them? Evelyn drove through the fog-shrouded streets of Ashwood, the weight of the manor's haunting presence still pressing down on her. Her mind raced, struggling to reconcile the terrifying experience with her logical worldview. She pulled over at the edge of town, heart pounding, fingers trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. The memories of the child's hollow eyes lingered like a shadow in her thoughts. The whispers hadn't just been figments of her imagination. They had felt real, urgent. But how could she explain that to anyone? As a journalist, she had always prided herself on grounding her work in facts, not superstition. Yet, the photo she had taken was a physical proof she couldn't dismiss. It lay in her bag, a tangible connection to the tragedy that unfolded in Ashwood Manor. With a trembling hand, she pulled out her camera and examined the last image taken in the dim light of that haunted room. The screen flickered, and Evelyn gasped. Instead of the room's details, she saw a swirling mist, dark and chaotic. And in the center, blurred but unmistakable, were the faces of the family, twisted in expressions of despair, their mouths open in silent screams. She quickly turned off the camera, feeling a wave of nausea wash over her. "This can't be happening," she muttered, glancing in the rearview mirror. The road behind her was a suffocating gray, the town seemingly swallowed by the fog. A sense of foreboding gripped her, urging her to leave, but a deeper part of her, the journalist's instinct, tugged at her to return. What had really happened to the family? What dark truth lay buried beneath the stories? She turned her gaze back to the mansion, its silhouette looming in the distance, and a shudder ran through her. The decision was made. She would not leave Ashwood until she uncovered its secrets. The following day, Evelyn returned to the manor, her heart racing with a mix of dread and determination. The fog was thicker, swallowing the house in an almost tangible gloom. She gathered her camera and notepad, mentally preparing herself for whatever awaited her within those crumbling walls. This time, she approached with a newfound sense of purpose. The air was electric, charged with an unseen energy as she crossed the threshold. Inside, the silence felt oppressive, as if the house itself held its breath. She steeled herself against the creeping sensation of being watched and ventured into the heart of the manor. Evelyn retraced her steps to the master bedroom, the air growing colder as she neared. The letters still lay scattered on the floor, and she knelt to gather them, hoping to find more clues. As she read through the brittle pages, one letter caught her eye. Written in a shaky hand, it spoke of an ancient curse that had befallen their family. The words blurred as she read, but the essence was clear. The family believed they were trapped by a dark force, one that fed on their despair. "We cannot escape," it read. "We are bound to this house, and it feeds on our sorrow." Evelyn's breath quickened. The implication was chilling. The house was not merely a backdrop to their tragedy. It was a living entity, thriving on their pain. She flipped to the next letter, heart pounding, desperate for more information. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the halls, causing her to jump. The sound came from downstairs, followed by a cacophony of whispers that filled the air. "Find us, remember." Compelled by an insatiable curiosity, she hurried toward the source of the noise. As she descended the staircase, the air turned thick with an unsettling energy. The whispers rose and fell, weaving through her thoughts like a sinister melody. At the bottom of the stairs, she found the parlor in disarray. The phonograph had toppled over, its horn facing the wall. As she bent to right it, a sharp chill enveloped her, and the whispers transformed into frantic cries. "Help us! Save us!" Evelyn's heart raced. She reached for the phonograph, but as she touched it, the music began to play again, this time, a distorted version of the previous melody, infused with a sense of urgency. The shadows around her thickened, swirling like a storm, and she felt the air vibrate with an unnatural force. Then she saw them, the silhouettes of the family, flickering at the edges of her vision, their faces contorted in anguish. They were no longer just ghosts of the past. They were a desperate plea for liberation, and the house was their prison. "Why won't you help us?" The voice was clear now, a child's voice echoing in her mind. "You can free us." Evelyn stumbled back, her breath hitching in her throat. "I'm just a journalist. I can't," but deep down, she knew she couldn't walk away. The weight of their suffering pressed on her heart, urging her to confront the darkness. Suddenly, the room darkened, the whispers crescendoing into a haunting symphony of despair. A vision flooded her mind. The family in happier times, laughter ringing out like music. Then it shifted, morphing into chaos. The father's rage, the mother's silent cries, the children's fear. As the scene unfolded, Evelyn felt an intense connection to their pain, as if their emotions were seeping into her very being. She stumbled, fighting against the tide of sorrow that threatened to drown her. "What do you want from me?" she cried out, desperate for clarity amidst the confusion. "Remember," the voices implored, echoing through the shadows. "Free us from this cycle." Trembling, she began to understand. The key to their release lay within their stories, the truth buried in the pain of the past. She needed to document their history, to give voice to their suffering in a way that would transcend the confines of the manor. Evelyn reached for her camera, determined to capture the essence of the family. As she began to photograph the room, she felt a surge of energy, a strange light illuminating the space. The shadows flickered, revealing glimpses of the family, their faces now reflecting hope rather than despair. But just as she captured a haunting image of the mother, the room trembled violently. The air grew thick, oppressive, and the whispers turned into a deafening roar. "No, you cannot escape." The world around her began to warp, the walls closing in, suffocating her with grief. Evelyn could feel the force of the house trying to pull her into its depths. She fought against it, shouting, "I'll help you, I promise." With a final flash, her camera captured the essence of the family, the energy swirling around her forming into a brilliant light. The cries of anguish turned into a single, harmonious plea. "Thank you." In that moment, she understood. Her role was not just to document their tragedy, but to weave their story into a tapestry of hope, breaking the cycle of despair that had held them captive for so long. But as the light enveloped her, the ground trembled beneath her feet, and the darkness clawed back with a vengeance. Evelyn braced herself, unsure if her promise would be enough to break the bond that tied the family to their home. And then everything went black. What would come next, she could only guess. In that suffocating void, she hoped she hadn't made a promise she couldn't keep. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. Evelyn awoke in darkness, disoriented and breathless. The oppressive weight of the house pressed down on her, yet the whispers had subsided, replaced by an eerie silence that felt almost tangible. As she blinked away the remnants of her dreams, she pushed herself up from the cold floor. A sliver of light cut through the darkness ahead, beckoning her like a distant star. Tentatively, she moved toward it, each step feeling heavy with uncertainty. As she approached, the faint outline of a door came into view, its edges glowing as if infused with a life of their own. Taking a deep breath, she grasped the handle and turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with faded photographs. Evelyn's heart raced as she recognized the faces of the family, their expressions now peaceful, as if caught in a moment of fleeting happiness. Each picture seemed to pulse with energy, drawing her further into the hall. As she walked, she could hear the echoes of laughter, faint yet intoxicating. They filled her with a sense of longing and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold despair she had felt moments before. The corridor twisted and turned, revealing doors on either side. She paused at one, her hand hovering over the handle. With a tentative push, the door swung open to reveal a nursery. Dust motes floated lazily in the light that spilled through a grimy window, illuminating a room frozen in time. Toys lay scattered across the floor, and a rocking chair creaked gently, as if still moved by the gentle hands of a mother. A chill ran down her spine. This was where the laughter had echoed, where innocence had once flourished. Yet now, the atmosphere felt heavy with the weight of unspoken sorrows. Evelyn stepped inside, the whispers returning, but this time softer, almost melodic. "Remember us, please." She knelt by a small wooden chest, its surface marred by age. Carefully, she opened it, revealing a collection of worn children's books and a tiny doll with frayed hair. As she picked up the doll, a memory surged through her, a fleeting image of a little girl, spinning in a sunlit garden, her laughter ringing out like bells. But that image quickly twisted, the girl's joy turning to fear as shadows swallowed her play. Evelyn's heart sank. This was the moment when the darkness began to claim them. "What happened to you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. In response, the atmosphere shifted, and the whispers transformed into a haunting symphony of grief. "Help us find peace," the voices implored, filling the air with desperation. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye. From the corner of the room, the girl from her vision appeared, her face illuminated by an otherworldly glow. She stood there, silent but pleading, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and sorrow. Evelyn's heart raced. "I want to help you," she said, reaching out, but the girl merely shook her head. The air around her shimmered, and Evelyn felt a pulse of energy, as if the very essence of the house was responding to their connection. "Remember," the girl echoed, her voice resonating within Evelyn's mind. The darkness around them stirred, and suddenly, the door slammed shut. Evelyn spun around, panic rising as the whispers grew louder, surrounding her in a whirlwind of voices. "You must remember. We are trapped." Desperation clawed at her throat. "What do you want me to remember?" she cried, frustration breaking through her fear. The girl's expression softened, and she pointed to a faded photograph on the wall, depicting a family picnic. Evelyn squinted at the image, her mind racing. This was before it all changed. The realization struck her like lightning. The key to freeing them lay in remembering the joy they had once shared, before the darkness seeped into their lives. With renewed determination, Evelyn began to speak, recounting the stories of the family as she remembered them from the letters. "You were happy here. You laughed together, played in the sun." The whispers began to soften, morphing into a haunting echo of those joyful moments. The room shimmered, the atmosphere shifting as the energy surged, intertwining with her words. The girl stepped closer, her face now radiant, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "We need you to remember us, to share our story." Evelyn understood. It wasn't just about documenting their sorrow. It was about celebrating their lives, their love, and their laughter. She took a deep breath, the weight of the task pressing upon her. "I will tell your story," she promised, her voice steady now. "I'll make sure everyone remembers you, the laughter, the love, the joy." The shadows in the room receded slightly, the whispers transforming into a chorus of gratitude. But before she could revel in the moment, the temperature dropped sharply, and the room dimmed. The girl's expression shifted to one of fear, and the shadows began to coalesce once more. "Leave this place!" the girl cried, her voice now a sharp whisper, urgency flooding her tone. "You must go now." Confusion surged through Evelyn. "But I can help. I can." "No. You must escape." The girl's image flickered, the shadows swirling around her as if the house itself was fighting to keep her there. Before Evelyn could respond, the floor beneath her began to tremble, the walls shifting ominously. Panic surged through her veins. "What's happening?" "You're running out of time," the girl urged, the urgency palpable. "The house is angry. You have to remember. But you must also leave." The whispers crescendoed into a chaotic roar, drowning out her thoughts. With a rush of instinct, Evelyn turned and ran, the corridors twisting and shifting as if the house was trying to disorient her. She could hear the echoes of laughter and cries blending into one haunting symphony, urging her onward. As she raced through the halls, the shadows lunged at her, clawing at her mind. Memories of the family's joy filled her thoughts, battling against the encroaching darkness. "Remember, remember." They echoed, but the sinister grip of the house tightened around her, suffocating her resolve. With a final burst of energy, she reached the front door, her hand trembling on the handle. She could feel the shadows closing in, hear the anguished cries of the family echoing through the walls. She flung the door open and stumbled into the daylight, gasping for breath. But as she turned to look back, the front door slammed shut, sealing the house in silence. The whispers faded into the distance, replaced by the soft rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds. Yet as she stood there, the sunlight casting warm rays over her, a chill crept up her spine. She knew that the house hadn't truly released its hold on her. The family's plea echoed in her mind, "Remember us." Evelyn took a shaky breath, realizing that she was not free. The manor's dark history had intertwined with her own. In her heart, she knew she would return. The unfinished story would haunt her dreams, a tether between the world she had left and the souls she had promised to remember. As she drove away, the looming silhouette of Ashwood Manor faded into the distance, but its whispers remained, a chilling reminder of the darkness lurking beneath the surface. And deep down, she understood. Her journey was just beginning. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of Ashwood Manor lingered in Evelyn's mind like a stubborn fog. No matter how hard she tried to focus on her other assignments, the faces of the family haunted her, their whispers entwining with her thoughts. The promise she had made echoed louder than ever. She had to remember their story, to give voice to the anguish that had bound them to the house. One sleepless night, she found herself poring over her notes, the photographs still hauntingly vivid on her camera. Each image seemed to pulse with energy, as if waiting for her to unlock their secrets. Evelyn opened her laptop and began to write, crafting a narrative that intertwined the family's joyful past with the darkness that had consumed them. But as she typed, an unsettling sensation washed over her, an awareness of being watched. The shadows in her apartment deepened, and she could swear she heard the faintest whispers drifting through the air. "Remember us." Evelyn's heart raced. She closed her laptop, trying to shake off the feeling, but it clung to her like a second skin. She couldn't ignore it any longer. The pull to return to Ashwood was irresistible. With a determined breath, she gathered her things and set out for the manor once more. The drive back was eerily quiet, the landscape shifting from the bustle of town to the suffocating embrace of fog. As she approached Ashwood Manor, a sense of foreboding washed over her, yet her resolve solidified. This time, she would confront whatever lay within those walls. Stepping inside, the familiar chill enveloped her. The house felt alive, the air charged with a potent energy that sent shivers down her spine. The whispers swirled around her, but now they were more coherent, pleading, "Help us, remember." Evelyn moved through the house, each room a testament to the family's life and the tragedy that had befallen them. She returned to the nursery, where the echoes of laughter seemed almost tangible. The doll lay where she had left it, and as she picked it up, she felt a warm pulse, as if the child's spirit still lingered there. "I'm here," she whispered, clutching the doll tightly. "I will remember. I will tell your story." The house responded with a sudden rush of air, the walls vibrating with anticipation. Evelyn took a deep breath, steeling herself. She began to speak aloud, recounting the joyful moments she had written about, breathing life into the family's memories. "Once you were happy. You played together, loved each other fiercely. You had dreams." The whispers grew louder, an affirmation of her words, weaving through the air like a tapestry of hope. As she spoke, the atmosphere shifted. The shadows danced, swirling around her, and she felt the presence of the family gathering, their faces becoming clearer, their expressions shifting from despair to a tentative hope. Evelyn could see them now together again, as they had been before the darkness descended. But then, a shudder ran through the house, a violent tremor that shook the very foundations. The walls groaned as the shadows morphed into a swirling vortex of darkness, the whispers turning frantic. "No, don't leave us. Help us." Evelyn's heart raced as she fought against the rising tide of panic. She understood that the house was not merely a vessel of their anguish. It was a creature, alive and hungry for despair. But she wouldn't allow it to claim her. "I will not let you keep them," she shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. "You can't feed on their pain any longer. They will be remembered, loved, and free." The energy in the room surged, coiling around her like a tempest. The shadows hissed, thrashing against her resolve. Evelyn focused on the family, their faces now illuminated by a warm glow, their presence solidifying into a beautiful tableau of love and joy. "Remember us," they cried in unison, their voices melding into one. With that, Evelyn closed her eyes and envisioned their stories, the joy they had shared, the love that had once filled the manor. She poured every ounce of her strength into her words, creating a bridge between their past and the freedom they longed for. The darkness recoiled as her voice rose, resonating within the very bones of the house. "You are not forgotten. You are loved. You are free." With a final surge of energy, the house trembled violently, the shadows clawing at the light she had conjured. A brilliant flash erupted, illuminating every corner of the manor. Evelyn felt the warmth envelop her, pulling her into a sanctuary of light. And then silence. When she opened her eyes, she found herself standing alone in the nursery, the sunlight streaming through the window, banishing the darkness. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a serene calm. The photographs on the walls no longer flickered with anguish. Instead, they radiated warmth and love. Evelyn exhaled, a wave of relief washing over her. The family's spirits were free, their whispers replaced by a gentle breeze rustling the leaves outside. She knew in her heart that she had fulfilled her promise. Their story would be told. As she stepped outside, the weight of the manor no longer hung over her. The air was fresh, the sunlight warm on her skin. The town of Ashwood felt different, vibrant in a way it hadn't before. But as she turned to look back at the manor, she noticed something glimmering on the ground, a small object catching the light. Curious, she walked over and picked it up, revealing a delicate locket. She opened it, and inside was a faded photograph of the family, their smiles now radiant, untainted by sorrow. Evelyn smiled, understanding that though the darkness had been vanquished, their memories would live on, intertwined with hers. The locket felt warm in her palm, a tangible reminder of the lives she had touched and the promise she had kept. As she walked away from Ashwood Manor, she felt the lingering presence of the family beside her, their whispers now transformed into a gentle melody of hope. She had not only remembered them, she had given them life once more, allowing their story to flow into the world, free from the confines of their haunted past. And in that moment, Evelyn realized that she would carry their legacy with her forever, a light in the darkness that would never fade. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.